were here. We were here in April when we did a GCRA board meeting where we had the GCRA board sort of sitting as a stakeholder, which the board wanted to do. And then we had also a prior meeting with the board. We also had a public meeting at that time, a community meeting downtown. And then we also had this before the city commission at that time with sort of the package of 6 findings and 16 ideas that were presented. So what you're going to find in this draft is essentially, you're not going to find too many changes to the 6 key findings and the 16 ideas. I think the thing that has changed is really we did ask MKSK to put a implementation strategy. There's actually a matrix on the main plan that's copied in the links in the backup that kind of shows all of the 16 ideas, who they should potentially be assigned to, whether it's a short-term, an ongoing, an interim, or a long-term type effort. And then some of the things are costed out as well, some just initial costs. As far as the main plan goes, the sections are the introduction, which just provides the intro to the effort, the downtown today, which is sort of what's going on in terms of the demographics and the market, et cetera. Reviews what we did in terms of the community engagement, and then the 16 ideas and the actual implementation. This project was a joint project funded 50% by the GCRA and 50% by the University of Florida. But this was really a top priority of the city commission. So the city was really sort of like, that's why Sarit and I were really sort of leading this the last year and a half or so. And you can see where we are in terms of the fiscal note in the agenda item. We're basically, we basically expended most of the funds, which would make sense because we're at the end of the road here. So that's all I have to say in intro. I don't know if Sarit wanted to say anything.
Maybe one thing. One thing that was interesting to see during this past 18 months is how much momentum was gathering from different private stakeholders, groups, organizations, and institutions. And we're really hopeful that the plan will help create a framework for everybody to work towards. So it's really exciting to see how many people are interested in different portions of the plan. And implementation has been repeatedly a topic that people don't just want a plan, people want to see action. So we hope that the segment today with the implementation metrics and case studies of how other places have done it will be helpful for us moving forward. That's it. Now we'll pass it to MKSK. We have Andrew, Luis, and Darren there. Andrew will start and Darren will continue. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Sarit. I'll go ahead and jump in if that's okay. I assume everyone can see the screen. Let me know if you cannot. But Darren is with me here this evening, as well as Luis, and we'll be happy to go through this presentation and answer any questions that you have. So it's wonderful to be with you again this evening. Really excited to share with you, where we've been in this work together. Quickly go through sort of where we are in the process. As Eric said, we're toward the end here. We'll talk a little bit more about the 16 ideas for downtown and implementation recommendations. Really, something we pride ourselves on is plans that turn into action, and really excited that there's already some momentum in that regard in Gainesville, and honestly strong interest throughout to get this plan moving in a way that's productive and impactful for the community. Since we've met in April with you all, with the community, with City Commission, additional stakeholders, we've had a chance to review all of that feedback, and it really helped inform and guide the work that we did as a team, and collaborating with Eric and Sarit on refining the ideas, 16 ideas that we've shared, and drafting a report that summarizes the process and its recommendations. So that's what we've been spending our time on. Again, had a chance to collaborate with Eric and Sreet and staff to get the language right, get the facts and figures correct, and make sure that we put an implementation roadmap together. And that really was the third thing that we've really been focusing on, is developing that implementation framework and strategy. Got some good guidance from the commission about different case studies and implementation agencies that they were interested in us exploring. So we've got some case studies, as you've hopefully seen, going through the plan from other communities, both in Florida, but also around the region that have faced these similar challenges as a downtown, as a city, as a community, and found solutions and found success. So really working to make sure this plan has that roadmap in it. So hopefully you've had a chance to take a look at the strategic plan document that we shared with you all, and go through it. And like I said, Luis and Darren and I are here to answer any questions you have following the presentation here this evening. The process, as Eric mentioned, we started our work, with the community in sort of spring, early summer of 2021. Spent some time getting the process right and making sure we had the right folks involved and getting that outreach done. We had a chance to meet with the community in the fall of 2021. And then as we moved into 2022, really getting into those big ideas for downtown and coming back with you all here this summer. So it's been a really great process to hear from a lot of voices, more than 800 voices, individual voices from the community involved in this work. But we really want to thank you all for the 3 meetings we've had with you, the commission, and really giving us good feedback, as well as our neighbor advisory group, which really was our advisory group through the process. Really important to have those community voices shape the plan, shape the vision, and start to send this plan in the right direction. Really want to thank Eric and Sreet as well for helping augment our sort of in-person meetings that we held, and augment our digital outreach with some on the ground one-on-one conversations, and distributing paper surveys at community events really helped us get a lot of voices involved in the plan. So as you recall from April, we did all that engagement and came to 6 key findings that we've started to explore with you all in April, and what that means. So strategies that go around each of these 6 ideas, 6 findings, to create these 16 ideas for downtown, and then focusing in on the implementation and how do we bring those to reality. So the first thing we talked about was becoming a destination in downtown, one that is not just a regional destination, but is a place where all Gainesville neighbors come and gather and feel welcome. We talked a lot about connecting the dots through walking, biking, transit connections in the downtown. Lots of great ideas there, and we're excited about some of those. We want to highlight some of those this evening. Strengthening the relationship between downtown and its near neighborhoods needs to be not just seamless, but uplifting to all. Increasing housing opportunities came up an awful lot. I think, if you're to put a headline on it, moving beyond student-oriented housing and building affordable and market rate housing in downtown for, full-time, residents, and increasing that supply is really important to a vibrant downtown, which really helps to create this local business environment that we're really focused on. How do we get local minority entrepreneurs and businesses involved in downtown? And so we've got some strategies here as well. And then I think the one that resonated the most, but it is, I think, a very key attribute to success here is maintaining and enhancing downtown, and having an entity that's responsible for the maintenance and enhancement of downtown, but also, eventually the programming and, being there to support and see these ideas through to fruition. Really important to have that entity in place. So when we went through this process in the spring, we really heard a lot of good support for these ideas, especially around Sweetwater Park and the trail and the Greenway Loop, recognizing that there's an opportunity in downtown to increase the available supply of housing of all kinds, that people want more things to do and more businesses that look and feel like them in downtown. Improving connectivity is huge. And then I think a lot of support for the idea of a downtown management organization. So really an affirmation of the community voices that we heard, and really gave us some food for thought as we started to develop the draft plan. So we're here this evening to submit this before you for recommendation to send forward for City Commission adoption. Darren will be there in person on Thursday with the City Commission, but I'll hand it over to him now.
As Andrew said, one of the things that was important for this process was, as we discerned what we heard through our community engagement and took those 6 key findings that Andrew referenced, we wanted to make sure that the recommendations and ideas that came out of this tied directly to those 6 findings, so that if you live or work in Gainesville, you can see those 6 things that reflect the importance and the priorities that you had and what we're doing to address those. So we put 16 ideas together to address both the concerns and the aspirations that are baked into those 6 findings from our community engagement. I was in the room in person in April to share some of those initial ideas and have some good conversation in April. And I'm happy to be back and talk a little bit about implementation today. Andrew referenced, and Eric as well, the implementation matrix. It's a little bit of a tricky thing with implementation. I think once you have an idea that starts to resonate and get some support and enthusiasm, there's always a desire for specificity and how to get to the next steps. And we share that desire, but we also want this to be a living document, and it's going to be a fluid process over the coming months and years as the community looks at various ways to tackle these. I've mentioned before, I think in our previous meeting, and probably worth restating, that one of the greatest benefits of planning looking forward, in this case for the downtown, is that once you work with the community to establish that vision, then you can do incremental improvements with the confidence that those investments are building towards that greater good, towards that greater vision. So we think we've got a good sense of what the community would like to see here, and this implementation matrix helps us look at some of those initial steps to make those happen. So we have the 16 ideas with some suggested responsible parties and timeframes for making those happen. And in some cases, where there are capital improvements involved, we provided some budget ranges as well to help with capital planning. One of the things we wanted to do this evening is really 2 parts. The first of which is we wanted to offer some thoughts from our perspective based on what we've learned, where we think there could be some really great impact from some of the ideas that grew out of this. I don't want to go through all 16 ideas in detail. You have the document available to you. So we wanted to share some of these, which we think sort of stood out to us as providing some really great opportunity for the Gainesville community. And then once we do that, sort of flip the script and allow you to guide us a little bit and let us know some of your reactions to what you've read in the document, what we've talked about, where your priorities are, and we can answer any questions and have discussion about that. So the 3 that we wanted to highlight today are shown here on the screen. The first one is place management organization, and that's a little bit of a jargony term, but really the crux of this is that there is no entity that's responsible for downtown. When we went through our planning process and talked to folks in the community, downtown is a word that everyone understands. Everyone knows where the heart of downtown is. Sometimes it's a little bit hard to describe the edges, but is an entity that has value to almost everyone in the Gainesville community that we spoke with, And yet there's no one directly responsible for overseeing that geography. So the idea of the place management organization is that this is a group that is working in the public interest, that's responsible to all the residents and businesses in Gainesville, but one that has specific responsibility for stewardship of downtown. And the baseline, as Andrew mentioned for that, which, and you'll hear this phrase lots of times with respect to these types of organizations when you hear clean and safe, the baseline is how do we address the issues that we heard frequently in our community engagement process about the quality of the public realm. So our streets, our sidewalks, their cleanliness, their safety. How do we make sure that this is a place that people feel safe and feel welcome? And that's a really core function of this organization. And so that would be, as you look on the text on the screen, what we would call these key livability or business viability issues. So it could be very difficult for you to imagine starting a business, or you may be struggling with your business if there are some fundamental issues of people feeling safe and comfortable moving through downtown. The other key piece that we think is essential as this organization gets off the ground is what we have referred to as protecting the core assets of downtown. So what you'll see in the document in other areas, and Andrew mentioned one in particular, making downtown a destination, is downtown has some things that are unique to the Gainesville community and complement what is happening in the neighborhoods and other parts of Gainesville. And we need to be able to celebrate those. We need to be able to protect those, and we need to be able to market and make people aware of those locally and beyond. And so thinking about what makes downtown competitive, what makes downtown unique, is going to be a big part of what makes business successful and what draws people to downtown. So those two aspects of this downtown organization, the clean and safe, and really protecting and strengthening those aspects that make downtown special are key pieces of that. And so we've had a lot of conversations with Eric and Street and other stakeholders in this, and we've done a number of case studies and happy to answer questions. I know a few came up in our previous meeting in April. And so I'm going to set aside that just for a moment and share these other two, and then we'll open it up for conversation. The second one that we think could have a great impact is what we've called Create a Downtown Jewel, and that's Sweetwater Park. So a few months ago when we chatted about this, I made the point that Sweetwater Park exists. It's beautiful. It's a great downtown park and asset, but it's underutilized. There's tremendous potential for Sweetwater Park. Part of that has to do with the fact that it is, along with the Sweetwater stream corridor itself, a natural threshold between East Gainesville and the neighborhoods east of downtown and downtown itself. So there's importance there. Excuse me. It's also a great potential for a catalyst. I think one of the most universal positive aspects of downtown Gainesville that we heard about was Depot Park. I can't think of a single person that spoke negatively of Depot Park. And I think other communities we worked in have had similar experiences where when you create great public space, it's amazing to see how all walks of life love to be in that space and be part of building community and spending time with nature and green space. So Sweetwater Park, even though it exists today, has tremendous potential to be an anchor for the surrounding institutions, for the Matheson, the library, to spur downtown. It's right adjacent to the core of downtown. And so that catalytic potential is huge. The third reason that Sweetwater Park is very exciting to us as an option is because it is a linchpin to a lot of larger networks and connecting neighborhoods. So Southeast First Street and connecting to downtown, even though it's a block or two away from Bo Diddley and some of the most commonly visited destinations, most people don't realize it, or it's not very intuitive in terms of your ability to walk that block or two and connect those assets. Likewise, when we think about the larger Sweetwater stream corridor and the potential for movement along that and larger connectivity to the neighborhoods, the park is a great anchor to get that underway. And that's a perfect segue to the third idea, which is idea 8, connecting neighborhoods to downtown. One of the great opportunities in light of what I just mentioned about Sweetwater Park is looking at how Southeast First can be part of the conversation about both Sweetwater Park and the larger stream corridor and greenway network to really connect some of the destinations that are in the core of downtown, the historic heart of downtown, to the neighborhoods and to these transportation corridors for cyclists and pedestrians. So Southeast and Southwest First Avenue already has some tremendous things going on today in terms of the businesses that are there, the hospitality, public space along that corridor. And one of the really important things, even though it gets a lot of bad press for reasons that are understandable, is you have two large parking structures, parking reservoirs that are absolutely essential for the success of downtown. And so there's a lot of conversation we can have about parking and parking structures and how to make sure that those are also safe and welcoming for folks. That's a big challenge. But the amount of investment put into that structure is really a tremendous benefit to these public spaces and the businesses around there. So Southeast and Southwest First Avenue has great potential to be this corridor, more than just a transportation link of a few blocks, but really knitting together some of these parking areas, which is where people, lots of people first visit or come to when they get to downtown, knitting together great public spaces like Bo Diddley Park and Sweetwater Park, and tying together the neighborhoods via the larger Greenway Loop and connectivity that are part of the plan as well. So these are three ideas that we think are very exciting and we're bullish about, and would love to see your reaction to these and how they might get legs. But we also want to hear other priorities that we haven't mentioned and be able to answer any questions and share any thoughts on how to advance this work. So I will stop there. And Luis, maybe if you want to back up to the slide that shows the 6 findings and 16 ideas, we can rest there for the conversation.
Thank you. Actually, first I want to ask you to roll back to the slide with the downtown jewel, the idea, where idea 3, the 3 big slides. Yes, this one.
I think it might be, I think the green light is.
All right. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. We all remember that. Okay. To frame my question, I want to ask you first to orient me on that middle slide with Sweetwater Park. Where's north, south? What are those orange blocks? I can't figure out location on there. Oh, those are opportunity sites. Okay.
A little bit, yeah. You can see the library labeled there and a few other things. That's a good comment.
Okay, much better. Now, Southeast 2nd, Southeast 4th. Okay, so here is my question. I think I need to just approach the screen to ask it clearly. I don't know if you can see this where you are. Jewel, this green area include this, which I know applies in the face of the conditions. Thank you. I want to ask that the green area, the jewel, include this, the garden, south of the garden to 5th Avenue, and from that all the way to the creek. This neighborhood, all these folks that I'm speaking for now because we've spoken together so much, want all this to be green space connecting to the creek and to Depot Park. And we need that even if the city has its 3- and 6-story vision dream west of the creek.
Right. So there was a comment in the chat. Is that McRory Garden? Is that the garden you're referring to?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's a good comment. And really, what we've shown here outlined is largely either publicly owned land or sort of public serving institutions in the case of
publicly owned that I'm
county schools or libraries. So if there are other areas that would be either public or there'd be partners that would want to be part of that. I think the idea of extending that green space and that green jewel, as you said, outward into the neighborhood is a tremendous opportunity. I couldn't agree more.
Oh, I want to compliment you. Parking reservoir. That's a good way to put a lipstick on a necessary pig.
Could we go back to the three ideas you were focusing on there then? I've been talking about your idea 15 for a while because I have a business downtown and I'm on my GNV app almost every day. It's like lights are out, the bricks loose in the road, which gets fixed pretty quick, but it would be better if it was full-time designated a park or someone that's always there working and able to fix things on the, like not a week later. Like this week, all the lights on the Dragonfly side were out all week. But I like that. The Sweetwater idea 3 I really like as well. And then the connecting the neighborhoods. That First Ave looks so bad right now. It looks, it's just taking away parking. Right now, what is your vision for it to look like? Like no driving on it or what?
Are you referring to Southeast and Southwest First, that corridor there?
Connect the downtown garage to Sweetwater Park.
Yeah, it's a mixed bag. You know, there are portions of, and it's really just, 4 blocks or so. There are portions that have some historic brick pavement, where you have newer development around the Hampton or others that, that's well cared for. And then there are some stretches that may be in front of, federal facilities or, other types of facilities that are just sort of dormant or, don't have sort of strong public facing qualities to them. So
I guess I'm mainly talking about Southwest First Avenue.
Southwest,
Like
yeah.
Lucy's and there's just those, it looks like, I grew up on military bases growing up and it kind of looks like how they would block roads by just sticking a big anti-tank thing so you can't drive through it.
Member ID.
Is it the idea to add like a center walkway so people could walk in the middle with parking on the side, or are you imagining only pedestrian on that road?
If you could speak into the mic, since we're recording and the other system is not functioning right now.
Okay. What is the plan for Southwest First to be only pedestrian, or are you imagining it like a mixed, or to kind of re-envision the street and to maybe making it one way so there's some cars on it?
So our experience has been that you can find on some successful examples of pedestrian only malls. They exist. On the other end of the spectrum, we can all picture streets and corridors auto dominated and they're not very comfortable. And we have seen a lot of successful areas where it's very much a pedestrian oriented environment, but not exclusive of cars. And I think that's important, even with those parking structures, that you have access to on-street parking. So as we look at those streets, to answer your question directly, I think we want to have a good balance of spaces that are generous for sidewalks, for people moving, spaces on the sidewalks for those retailers and restaurants and businesses to be able to spill out and have outdoor dining or outdoor retailing. I think we want to preserve as much on-street parking as possible and also allow traffic movement through there. I think the benefit of that corridor, because it's not a through street in the traditional sense, is that it's difficult to pick up speed there. It's likely to be a low speed area, and I think we can build on that to create a much more pedestrian friendly vibe. So yeah, I think it would be ideally a mix of all of the above with the emphasis on pedestrian first.
Yeah, I know we have some of the roads in Gainesville. I think North or First Street has the biking like symbols on the side of the road, which kind of helps. Like I think the path is green and it kind of aids in, telling cars like this is also for bikes. I just wanted to hear what y'all's plan was on that, or envisioning it of it.
Right. Sarit, is there anything that you wanted to add?
On Thursday, after at the city commission, can you hear me? Is this working? Yeah. On Thursday, we're going to have at the morning session at the city commission, the downtown strategic plan, similar presentation to this one, followed by a presentation that talks about South, East and West First Avenue. And we'll talk about a couple of scenarios that we have for discussion.
Member Mitchell.
Thank you. Yes, I did 15. I wanted to ask about that. Member Jacob has given me the impression that the services that are already expected downtown are not efficient or effective. And so my question is, what's already in place that is supposed to be maintaining downtown? Are we reinventing the wheel with some of these services? Are we making sure we're maximizing efficiency in terms of things we expect the city to already do that maybe they need to do better? And what extra features are, as you would say, enhancements would this be providing? And also, how would we be sustaining and resourcing this financially?
One of the challenges that you always hear in cities is downtown versus neighborhoods, right? You have what's traditionally your core business district, a lot of business activity, and you have your areas where your residents live, and cities have the challenge of equitably distributing resources across both of those. And so one of the things that I think the proof is in the pudding with why these downtown management organizations are important in addition to what the city would be doing, the fact that so many state legislatures have created enabling policy to allow these districts to be created because they recognize that downtowns are unique and they have special needs that really require attention that often exceeds the capacity of local government to really support those businesses and other needs of those communities. So I think there's a really good precedent nationwide. So many communities have these downtown organizations that have been successful, and they need to be done well. But I do believe that they are important in addition to the services that the city is or should be providing.
Yeah, and what we've done to advance this a little bit is provide a few case studies at the end of organizations that we've either worked with or are sort of local in Florida to give you a couple ideas of sort of how things are run, the types of things that these organizations do, what do they bring to the table. So I think, we're recommending that you start with the basics, the things we're hearing the sort of the most complaints around, which is clean and safe and maintaining downtown to maybe a little bit of a higher standard that helps to encourage, business and activity and people being there on a day-to-day basis, and eventually, getting into maybe some more complex types of things, whether that's programming or getting involved in retail tenanting. We've worked with some organizations that help to fill vacant storefronts and bring vitality and bring new businesses into downtown. So there's a level of sophistication that increases with time. But all of these organizations that we've worked with, and again, we've worked with every single one of these organizations that's up here on this screen, they all sort of start with that core service. Core service is incredibly important. So in the report, you'll find case studies from Jacksonville, Miami, Louisville, and Columbus, and we've given you some information about sort of the roles and responsibilities, where they, how do they fund themselves. Every single one of these is funded a little bit differently. But your point about sustainability is incredibly important to have a stable source of funding. A lot of them have different budgets based on how sophisticated the organization is and what it is that they take on a year-to-year basis. So try to provide a good amount of information there. And I think as a next step, what we've sort of volunteered to do is connect connect you all with folks in these various organizations to start to talk about how do you begin to form one of these entities, and what are some of the, the important pieces there.
Thank you.
Thank you. First of all, I want to really compliment you on the document. I think it's a very good piece of work. It's very comprehensive. It's an easy read. It's easy to understand. I think you've done a really good job of presenting the information. And on top of that, I really think you've done a good job of collecting the information as well. And I want to also extend that congratulations to both Eric and Sarit, because I know they've been actively involved in making this thing happen. And so we appreciate your efforts. I think it really is a really good document. And I like the idea of the form a place management organization. I really do. I do believe, a lot of the information that you provide related to the benefits from that. I just wanted to find out, you talk about, having multiple organizations involved in that, Alachua County, City of Gainesville, University of Florida, and all those make sense, Chamber of Commerce, and other private organizations you talked about. I was just trying to understand who would be in charge of the group and how would it be structured. And in terms of funding, I think, one of the concerns that I heard, I was at lunch today, and the first thing that I heard is, okay, so there's going to be an additional assessment. We're going to have to spend additional money to fund this thing. And I said, well, from my perspective, it should really be whatever's happening downtown that's really funding this thing. And so there should be economic development. There should be things that happen that allow this thing to move forward. So I was just curious if you had some concepts related to how it would actually be structured, who would be in charge, who do they report to? Is it similar to the way the CRA was structured? And then what are some ideas in terms of funding to try to make the citizens not think it's just another way to grab money out of our pockets for an organization? So those are my initial questions.
Those are two really good questions, and I think as this is explored, putting you in touch with some of these organizations will help to answer them. But to answer your question tonight, most of these groups are beholden to a board, and that board is a cross section of the community, or ideally a cross section of the community, whether that's city, county, other downtown stakeholders. So there's some accountability to a broad cross section of the downtown community. So that I think is pretty common across all of these groups. Funding really goes across the board in terms of how they're funded. Some of them are special assessment districts. They get a portion of their funding through that. But oftentimes there's as you pointed out, and I think it's a pretty smart move. Those groups that are pretty savvy have made a direct connection between something that's happening in downtown and making sure that some of that benefit, or that, what the sort of spillover from that helps to fund things. So in Louisville, they get a lot of their funding from the lease that they have with the Louisville AAA baseball team. So that sort of very downtown specific thing, that lease agreement helps to fund a portion of their year-to-year budget. And again, that's a pretty savvy move. Others have, in the case of downtown Columbus, they have some rental property income and program services contributions from the philanthropic community, but also they control a couple key parking garages. And so that parking revenue, they upkeep the garages that are key to downtown, but that parking revenue helps to fund the organization. So I think, it's a combination of assessment and other funding streams that ideally are protected from the sort of ups and downs of annual budgets. And I think your point about something that, is sort of directly connected to downtown, that makes a lot of sense. And you'll see a lot of organizations that have that in their formula for funding.
That answers my question. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Wait, one of them. Go ahead, Mr. Number.
Because I know this is probably going to get closed up here. I did read the entire report, so I do have a couple of things. You know, you talk about TIF funding a little bit in your document, not very much. I had asked last time when I was in here that you would provide information related to the city of Greenville. I've been to the city of Greenville, and I think it's just amazing the transformation that they have had over the last 30 years. They're a city similar size to us. I think there's 70,000 people in that city. I don't know what their metropolitan area and what contributes to their economy there is exactly, but they're similar to us in a lot of ways. And I'm just amazed at how that's transformed. And it transformed around their creek area, around the waterfall that they had downtown. That's one of the things that was a major play. They talk a lot about private-public partnership. They talk about basically that most of the work that they've done, they've accomplished through TIF funding. So I want to know if you could speak to TIF funding a little bit. I think that the Sweetwater Park element that you're talking about in this particular process, that's our creek. That's similar to what they had. It brings a lot of people downtown. There's an opportunity not only to spend time within the restaurants and shops and all the things that are going on downtown in all the different areas. They have hotels. They have all the things that we have, but they also have this gem and this jewel that you're talking about creating here. I think that particular element is super important. And so, but if you could talk a little bit about TIF funding and whether or not there's any parallels between us and Greenville. And they do not have this organization that you're talking about, is my understanding.
Yeah, Darren's in Greenville, so I'll let and has been involved in a lot of stuff there, so I'll let him answer that one.
It's a good question, and it's changed over time too. I think what Greenville did well, and what I think they're trying to do now, which is good, is they're changing their approach to participation in these projects because of the way that downtown has matured. And so the big difference that I see between downtown Greenville, South Carolina, and downtown Gainesville maybe is just where they are on the arc of creating their downtown. So early on, there was a lot of public-private participation. TIF was very heavily used, and I think it was needed to get over the hump and start to get the momentum that pushed downtown forward. In recent years, the TIF legislation has changed. It now requires a different level of sign off from the schools, which is effectively allows the schools to opt out, which has really effectively nixed the value of using these TIF districts. But in the case of Greenville, that actually is fine because they are looking to taper down their amount of participation in these economic development deals that happen downtown because there is such great momentum and such great interest from the market. It's just simply not needed. And it's hard because the asks always come in and the next development and the big employer is always very exciting. But I think that has been their goal in recent years, is to sort of reposition how much they participate in that. But early on, the value of that TIF in the previous form of the legislation and how it was used in those public-private partnerships, you're right, was absolutely key to getting some of those trailblazing projects done.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? They can proceed.
Did you want to continue with your presentation, Andrew, or are you ready for, what are you ready for next?
Yeah, I think at this point, that's what we had intended to present. If there were specific questions about other things that we didn't touch on tonight, happy to have more conversation around that. But I'll leave it to those in the room to decide if we need to talk more or what.
My question would be, so when you go to the city commission meeting on Thursday, these are only 3 ideas that you're going to be touching on? Or are you going to go over the remaining of the project of your presentation?
Yeah, that's a good question. We debated that because we presented these 16 ideas to this body in April, and likewise to commission, we wanted to find the right balance between sort of repeating ourselves, but also refreshing folks' memories in terms of what's in here. So our thought was, since this document has been made available and we presented it a few months ago, that we would, give the overview of what those 6 findings and 16 ideas were, but not go through them individually. But we're happy to tackle each of those, or as many of those as you'd like, tonight.
Thank you. Any other board members before I ask? Is there anybody with public comment?
We're gonna public comment.
Oh, okay.
I just wanted to present a couple of things that came out of their presentation that I think would be good for staff to present to the board. Oh, and I get my own Mr. Microphone. So just a couple of things I was thinking as I listened to their report and initiatives that are underway by the city commission is the GCRA board knows my normal day job is I'm the public works director. So he nailed one of the points perfectly. And that as the public works director, my job is to maintain every one of the streets in a fair and equitable manner, which means that I'm trying every day to get every street maintained, so nobody gets any more service than any other part of town. And with the staff and resources that we have, even that is difficult at times. So I thought that was a perfect point that you guys made about the lack of dedicated resources. If you follow the budget process, the city commission has been listening to some of the things already that is coming out in the report. They have tentatively approved. They've had first reading of their budget, and in that budget is a 4-person crew in Public Works Department that will work in what we've defined as a downtown area. It's a limited area downtown. And there will be services between the 4-person crew in Public Works and a contractor 7 days a week, cleaning up certain areas of the downtown. As you all know, with the university students, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday are worse days to clean up than some of the others and after football games. But that crew that was approved on first reading will do things like the trash cleanup. I heard somebody mention the bricks. That's one of the things they'll be working on, because we don't have a brick mason on staff right now. When GCRA, and Stephanie, you may have been with GCRA when they did some of the brick projects downtown. A brick mason came in and did that, and Public Works doesn't have one, and nobody can find one right now. It's a skill that's kind of a lost art. So we'll be training staff on how to fix the bricks downtown. They'll be maintaining the landscaping beds that aren't maintained right now. They'll be doing some street sweeping on the sidewalks. We're getting some special equipment to do that. Assuming the budget passes on second reading, all that will come forth after October 1st. And I think Sarit talked about some of the streetery stuff that's coming up Thursday on the agenda. So again, I think the commission has already been listening to some of these ideas. And the final thing that I wanted to point out, as somebody who came into the CRA as an outsider, come over from, Public Works via the city manager's office, is that the board knows this. You have a 7-year lifespan left right now on the GCRA. And then what happens at the end of the 7 years? Does the city and the county jointly extend that, depending on what progress we show? Just listening to everybody, one of the ideas could be that the GCRA becomes that downtown overseer. You've already got the structure set up. You've already got its own independent department. It receives TIF funding. Over the years, we've looked at several different paid parking opportunities downtown. The CRA has on several occasions brought forth ideas to do paid parking downtown. Prior to being the public works director, I was the city's traffic engineer, so I had the opportunity to work on those projects. And our plan was for the paid parking downtown, anything above and beyond the operating cost of the program, which was a significant amount of money, would go back into the downtown. So you didn't have to do a bid. You didn't have to do a TIF. You could use the revenues, and they talked about some of the parking garages doing that. And if you've been to any of the commission meetings where we've talked about the paid parking downtown, particularly in the evening, you've seen the opposition. And one of the problems we have with the 2 paid garages is, why would I pay to park in the garage if I can park on street for free? And so people park in the garage as an area of last resort. So a lot of these things are already being considered. I think they've done a great job. I think they've done a great job of bringing some of that stuff out. So I just wanted to share that with you from a staff perspective of some of the things they're already kind of cooking and already being thought about with the work they're doing. And a lot of it's because some of the ideas they've had in their conversations with the commission and the community. And with that, I will sit back down and be quiet.
Thank you. Member Mitchell.
I'd just like to say thank you for bringing that information out. That was kind of the things I was alluding to. Are we overlapping? Are we reinventing the wheel in some kind of way? The collaboration is very important. Well, I'll speak for myself. I'm grateful to have you in the room to enlighten us on those things.
Member Blunt.
About the bricks, I thought we had a powerful masonry program going on out of San. Is Jim Painter still alive? I haven't seen it. since I
He is.
posted off the career
I
center
think,
thing.
I'm pretty sure he is, but I don't know about what they're still doing at Santa Fe though. But I do know the program you're talking about because we had quite a few students a long time.
Are you familiar with what I'm talking about, Jim Painter?
Mhm.
Masonry?
We've done a lot of work with Painter Masonry over
the years. Mhm.
He was a commissioner. Hopefully they're picking it up through your microphone. But he was a commissioner for several years as well.
Yes.
So we just aren't getting any brick masons coming into our workforce. And when we talk to the various contractors around town, I think the GCRA staff would tell you this, the public works staff would tell you this. They're having to go find those brick masons as well.
And my other question, isn't TIF now an anachronism for us? We're not under the TIF model anymore, right? I thought we abandoned the state definition for CRA to become a city department under just general appropriation.
We are no longer following the state criteria, but there is still TIF funding coming into the GCRA.
Oh,
Which Daniel was here to discuss that.
I can speak to it as well, but he's on. So I don't know if this is soon, but say something.
The part of what's happening here and the reason the GCRA is no longer a statutory CRA is because the county is pulling back a portion of their money. The city is still putting in the same portion of TIF funding that they always have. Daniel, if you're up there, if you want to add to what I said.
Sure. Good evening, everybody. So the tax increment funding structure, we no longer receive funds from that. The interlocal agreement was an agreement with this between the city and the county that replaced that. So there's no longer new funds coming in restricted to a certain old district that we had. All the new funds coming in can be spent anywhere within the entire boundary. We do still have remaining funds in some of the old districts, being College Park and downtown primarily, that have to be spent within those old boundaries for the old districts though. But there's no specific new money coming into those districts that are locked inside of those previous districts at this time.
Except for the legacy. Which you saw yesterday's meeting. They emphasized that point.
Anybody else before we go to public comment?
Madam Chair, if I may, just to remind everyone to please speak into your mics.
Okay.
I heard you.
So does anyone have, anybody here? Mr. Mounts, would you go up to the microphone so we can get you?
Good evening, Chairman Seawright. I'm Robert Mounts, current board president of the Matheson History Museum, which is right in the middle of this wonderful Greenway project. We're all over that, and former chair of the College Park, University Heights Redevelopment Advisory Board. When we thought a lot of that money was going to go east side, I'm just going to say that for Armando, if you're listening. But I have an opinion column in today in the Gainesville Sun, Gainesville.com, which praises this program in general. A lot of good ideas. We submitted a letter to FDOT immediately when it was rolled out in April, asking their support for a crosswalk on East University Avenue at the southern end of Northeast Boulevard and connecting the Matheson Museum and on down through Sweetwater Park. Got a nice letter back saying, yeah, when the planners work on this, we'll work with them. We'll coordinate it and see if it's a good place for it. But it needs to be done now, frankly, because a lot of people walk illegally across there from various buildings. We even have another building on the other side of the street. But the real thing, the concern that I have, and first it's a compliment that throughout the plan, it emphasizes the need to make downtown clean and safe. And as you know, if you've been following the news and listening to now Chief Police Lonnie Scott, his son, the downtime district leader, Lonnie Scott Jr., for a year now, they've been talking about what happens after the bars close downtown. And a year ago, August, they briefed the City Commission on that from what was happening last summer. The City Commission abruptly, on Commissioner Ward's motion with Hayes Santos egging him on, cut back enforcement of the open container law to only the hours of 2:30 in the morning to 7 a.m. I pointed out at the time that what that meant was that instead of responsibly drinking and bar owners, innkeepers keeping track as you're winding down before the bars close, that meant you could get your last drink in a paper cup at 2 o'clock, take it outside, and you had 30 minutes to consume it legally. I said that was insane. Last week at the general policy meeting, they had a long discussion about this at the motion of Commissioner Sacco, who had personally gone down and saw last April some of the violence that's taken place, especially on Easter weekend, and to try to roll this back to at least 11:30 when the parks close. But they ended a discussion saying, we just want more information. I'll tell you where I come from. I'm a retired Air Force judge advocate, 25 years, and also a retired civil service international relations advisor for the commander in Korea, another 18 years. And a lot of that time was spent advising that commander on what to do about 18 to 25-year-olds that were committing sexual assaults or getting into brawls or having an international incident because of drinking and underage drinking. And over there, it became in Seoul, it became an international incident. But here in Gainesville, what it leads to is alcohol-fueled violence after the bars closed. And in America, unlike Seoul, we have the readily availability of guns. Now, the City Commission knows they can't regulate guns, but they sure as heck can regulate the consumption of alcohol. And you need to impress on them that in order to avoid Public Works having to go clean up the mess that takes place downtown, we need to restrain and attract the right people, make it a family-oriented place, and not just a place that's a mecca for people from all around North Florida, because you can drink publicly downtown Gainesville and the police are powerless to do anything about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mounts. Oh, I'm sorry. Ms. Silva.
Hi, I'm Tana Silva. I will admit from the beginning, I've wondered why UF is involved in this at all. And why UF is so entrenched in city government now. I do have some skepticism about some of the items that are in the plan, and that is tax abatements for more market rate housing. We've had that since 1996 with Union Street Station, millions of dollars. In which taxpayers are subsidizing market rate development. We don't need any more of that. And I also have questions like Mr. Mitchell and that Mr. Mann explained about the financing and why the need for another organization. If we just got rid of the CRA for the downtown area, And I noticed Jacksonville's organization is a CRA for downtown. The GCRA became a department of the city. And as Mr. Mount said, the focus went away from east side as it was supposed to go and started coming downtown again. AMJ has gotten $1 million, more than $1 million really, from $1 million for lot 10 for some future possible something of housing that is undetermined, plus I think $350,000 for infrastructure help, plus 400 and something $1,000 for infrastructure help for the hotel. I say to see the city start all over again with another organization that's just going to be a funnel for taxpayer money to go to developers. That, the city is beyond that. The city is beyond having to give away anything, and leverage and all of that. Sorry, I'll try to be a little more succinct. I think the Power District 2013 plan that the CRA then approved is wonderful. And I am happy to see in this kind of updated version that there is a nod to the need for and the desire of maintaining what the word then was funky, building reuse, a focus on the small, local, homegrown businesses, not any more of these wasted spaces that we're seeing in these huge apartment buildings and the ground floor stuff. I did want to go back to AMJ and just quickly say that they are now asking the county to rent space in their proposed lot 10 high rise, which in my opinion should have been a little pocket park to begin with, but and to demolish the county building. So, let's not go there. Colliers International was audited and found to not have complied with its contract to basically market Gainesville to the world. And I still see elements of that plan in this, particularly the RTS property, 10 acres, right beside Depot Park. That definitely needs to be an expansion of Depot Park, not to be sold for more high-rise developments. And this plan, when I first saw it, it started out with a strategic area that conformed to the downtown zoning, the DT zoning, but also this little triangle that includes Argos property, which is going to need a lot of environmental cleanup. So I don't know who's going to be responsible for that. But it also takes in now neighborhoods, including mine, Pleasant Street, which has some unwanted downtown zoning in it that we have been trying to get rid of. So I think there needs to be a lot more care. We don't want sidewalks throughout all of our neighborhoods. I think we need to take a lot of care about what you mean by connectivity to downtown. Let's see, oh, I'm sorry, there's just a lot. The sale of city properties was going to be another function of Colliers, which was unneeded. The city, I hope, will take a lot more care and not, as the mayor has proposed, to just sell city properties for market rate, some market rate sales. Trees, big deal here, but I guess mainly I'm just concerned about the management of it all. Why does there need to be another organization? And why isn't UF? I don't see anything in it about UF giving up anything. And the taxpayers have spent millions of dollars on the innovation district and have not really seen a return on that. So I just think it probably won't get much scrutiny at the city commission, but those are some of the concerns that I have about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Silva. Is there anyone else here? Public comment? Andrew and or Darren. So Ms. Silva brought something back that I wanted to ask about. Exactly what information do you have about the Rosa Park transfer station? Is that a part of your plan? I didn't see it, but she brought it up. And I know that was one of the plans. I know there was Yeah, the Rosa Park are 13.
She's talking about the old.
She talking about the old transfer station. Okay. Okay, the old one. Okay. So, but since I asked the question, is there, is there anything gonna be done with the Rosa Park station, bus terminal?
The current one, no, it stays as is.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I have a comment related to the old RTS facility. As I understand it, and again, you can probably comment this on the plan. If you look at the plan, it actually looks at that particular site as another community opportunity. So it's something similar to what the Cade Museum is, something like that is what I saw when I looked at the plan, and not a private development such as another high rise with housing. Yeah. But that's what I saw in the plan, and I was really encouraged by that. I thought that was a nice element of the plan, so I was encouraged by that part of it.
Member Blunt?
I recall talk at some point about putting a structure above Rosa Parks, keeping the bus transfer on the ground level and putting a building up above that. Did that idea stay afloat?
I think that might have been something that was in the original power district plan. I think if something like that came to fruition, it makes a lot, that'd be great. I think in the short run, just, looking at opportunities in downtown for infill development, there's probably a lot of easier sites that would probably happen first. Just because of the expense of building an integrated structure with transit below, and development above.
Thank you. Member Ida?
I agree with the public comment that lot 10 would be way better as a park. That was a missed opportunity.
Anybody else? Member none.
Yeah, since you brought up the Rosa Parks, one of the concepts that I had thought about for that particular location would be a parking garage. So you have parking that would actually support the Depot Park area, which already is challenged as far as getting parking. And it's relatively close to, the amenities are downtown. So that is something that could be considered for that site.
Yeah, we've seen that model work in a couple other cities that put parking garages and transit together. That they a little bit more of a natural partnership, being all transportation related.
I mentioned one.
Yes.
I wanted to mention one facet of this plan, which is the create and supportive local business environment. Because I just want the board to know about it, because it's basically in my world, and that is that, the city owns property and the city is a landlord. And so, like in my world, in my particular area, we do 7 or 8 leases with small businesses downtown. And they're some of the small businesses that you see on Bo Diddley Plaza, which is like the former Steamers, which is now Muneca's, I think, and Cavigator and How Bizarre and some of these other places. And one of the things that is in that create a supportive local business environment, and the thing that the city has to start thinking through a little bit, is that we're having conversations with these small business owners who are in these spaces. Number one, the city provides them with a lease rate that in many cases is probably below market, in order to retain small local businesses. But number two is several of them are in the process of wanting to improve their properties because of their their normal business operations. And they're really not able to do that because of the spaces that they occupy. And so the community has to be thinking through, how do we assist those folks? And I know the CRA does some of that with or they've had a history of doing that with 50-50 grants and that kind of thing. But I think we're going to need to be doing more of that as a city, because if we don't start doing that, those small local businesses are going to leave. And I'm just telling you that that's a conversation that, Sarit and myself and the other person that works in our area that are trying, because the community, I do hear that the community is interested in retaining that type of business in the downtown. but they're not gonna do it in a space that's maybe not safe, not functional. Doesn't work for their business model anymore unless we figure something out. And so we're starting to talk about that a little bit amongst the staff, but if, I mean, in the future, if we do want to retain that type of business, we're gonna have to think that through, because otherwise they're not gonna be around too long. I'm just telling you guys that.
Is that like, I'm just thinking like, and if they grow out of that, they should get another building that someone else will do.
Well, we've got two businesses on Bo Diddley Plaza that one just has a very functional issue of not being able to accommodate people when it's not good weather. And they're looking for like an yeah, they're looking for like an awning system or something like that. Well, the pricing we've got on some of those solutions is tens of fifteens of thousands of dollars on some of our, and these are small local businesses. They just can't, they don't have access to that funding. Oh, and on the other side is steamers, and they want to do a lot of things with their building, but they're barely functional in terms of how they're conducting their business right now.
Which plaza business is talking about the awning? You're like, I can't the same
Cavigator.
situation.
Cavigator.
No,
That's the one where there used to be the patty cakes.
Unicus doesn't have any covered outdoor. either.
Yeah, well,
Just a box over there, too.
They're talking about the same thing. So I just wanted for the board to bring that up because it's really one of the findings that was talked about here. And I know we talk about these things a lot of times in the abstract, but these are like real conversations we're having this week, right now. So.
Yeah, this time of year, it could be hard. This time of year could be hard on spaces like that with afternoon thunderstorms and trying to maintain business in the middle of the day, and they can't house as many people, because I go to Cavigator every now and then, and so they have to bring their furniture in and all that, and real cozy, but when the rain comes, it's very inconvenient.
But I really appreciate all the board's comments tonight and the public comments. So thank you.
Anything else? So we do have, they're asking for a recommendation from us, if I'm correct. We need a recommendation for us as the GCRA board to recommend that the city commission adopt the City of Gainesville Downtown Strategic Plan as presented here this evening.
So moved.
So second.
It's been moved and properly second. Any further discussion? Member Blunt?
Yes, I want to say that I can support that motion if the green space area for Sweetwater is expanded as I described. Garden block all the way over to the creek.
So you have to ask Member Norquist if he would like to change his recommendation, excuse me.
So I like that concept a lot. I think what I've seen in some parks, and I'll bring up New York City, for instance, Bryant Park, it's a park area, but there's still some amenities in the park. There's an opportunity to get something to eat there, sit down and have a lunch or something like that. So, whether or not it all stays as a green space, that would be my question. Maybe there's something that can coexist that still blends in with a neighborhood, which I completely understand the concern and am sensitive to that. But maybe there's something that's appropriate there. I'm not talking about a 3-story building or, a residential complex, but maybe there's something that's complementary. So I would amend the motion if there would be an opening to having some kind of a amenity associated with that green space, possibly. And it may be that it's not appropriate, but at least that the door is open in case it.
I'll step out on speaking for the neighbors that we'd be fine with a little tiny place over there to walk for coffee instead of going all the way down to it.
Okay.
It doesn't have to be all blades of grass.
Okay.
What we're dreading is towering monuments.
Member Mitchell, do you accept the change to the recommendation?
Yes, I accept the amendment.
All right, it's been moved and properly second. Any further discussion? Oh,
Madam
sorry.
Chair,
What?
could I get some clarification on the amended motion, please?
So they are recommending that that the city commission adopt the city of Gainesville downtown strategic planning with the changes of expanding the that power district area of the map to be green space with open air amenities like food, park.
Park appropriate amenities.
Park appropriate.
It's the Sweetwater Park amenity expanded between Fourth Avenue and Fifth Avenue from the creek eastward to Sixth Terrace.
Okay.
Yeah. So we're looking at between Fourth Avenue and Fifth Avenue southeast, between the creek and southeast Sixth Terrace, that all of that space be added to the Sweetwater Park green space with the possibility of open air. Thanks for that phrase.
Got that?
Do they have to be open air?
Well, I think what you meant by that, these are small spots.
Well, I
You
was
don't
just
have
gonna
massive indoor seating, it's seating without.
Agreed.
We good? All right, once again, it's been a motion, been properly seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, and thank you all for coming this evening.
Thank you very much for having us.
You're welcome. Have a good evening.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody.
Do we have any public comment on anything except the downtown strategic plan? All right, hearing none, we're gonna move on. Any member comments at this time? Okay,
Yes.
okay. Member
It's
Mitchell?
more of a question for Eric and Sarit. As they had noted, the last time they were here in April was April. And I guess in the back of my mind, it's been questions on what's the current status of 8th and Waldo. So if at any time y'all would like to.
Waldo's in the cone of silence.
It's in the cone of silence right now?
Or
Okay, do you have any idea when it will be outside of the cone of silence?
There's been an RFP, the RFP has been reviewed and all reviews have been scheduled, I think. Mr. Blunt attended, there's a public meeting on that, not, and you do too. I know he's talking about the specific water project, which is it's in the RFP process.
Right,
And
because I think that
oral interviews for that.
the impediment was the financing place on the corner. That was at least one of them.
It's still there,
Okay,
still in effect,
got it.
but and he was at the meeting yesterday Monday when we removed the lot. So there's two things at play here. It's moving the CRA boundary to include the entire emergency, make that the complex. And then there's also the RFP process, that's what's in the contract.
Okay,
We got the line move, which means CRA money can be used on the fair site.
great. So the RFP process has a deadline, I suppose?
It doesn't necessarily have a deadline per se, but we want to move quickly to the oral interviews. Eric, are you on that as well? No. You're not on that? I'm on some of the RFP process. We're moving to the oral interview process. Obviously, we want to get it done.
Okay,
That we can then collectively to CRA staff move forward on whatever project is out.
cool. Well, that'll suffice. I just wanted to stay in touch with where we are with that, because I haven't heard anything in a while.
Recommendations to city commission. If not the second meeting in September, maybe the first meeting in October. City manager was shooting for the first meeting in September, but that is September 1st. And we've got so many schedules we have to coordinate, so we have to coordinate it to do all presentations.
Okay. Thank you.
Member Norquist?
Just to follow up on that, the discussion that they had yesterday where the county and the city commission sat jointly. The county expressed concern about that project. They expressed concern about the fact that it's not moving forward, that it's just dragging its feet is the way they were describing it. So they really expressed some concern related to making sure that that project's moved forward. I think the fact that they have moved the line, which Mr. Mann just discussed, I think that's a great opportunity for the site because it provides a lot of flexibility. But I think, you know, it's going to be inherent on the city and on the GCRA to move that project forward. So I think there's really, hopefully there's some momentum. That's the impression that I got from all the staff that I heard, all the presentations. And so we'll see where that goes. But it certainly was a concern to the county to keep moving that thing forward.
I agree. And my personal comment is, I think, and I've said this to several commissioners, I think that this board has the momentum and has always had the momentum. But as far as we can move it, it's out of our hands to a degree. And I keep reiterating that because a lot of people, you know, they make a lot of comments about what this board is or is not doing, but they're not here to see that we're doing, and we're doing the best thing. But, you know, we don't do the work for the most part, you know. So, you're correct.
I guess I wanted to redirect to Mo. So in light of the feeling of the commission and everything, what can we do and how do we best serve, or what are you're in a position to do to help us serve as a board to move this thing forward? Right now, and even looking at after the RFPs, what's the best next moves and strategies and things we should be looking at?
I will definitely say that yesterday's meeting was a great one for all of us. That is an opportunity where leadership, both commissions, the board and the GCRA now can move things forward in a greater momentum that really allowed us to find a way to, once the RFP is out of the cone of silence, and we sort of get some of that analysis back from the consultants. I think that's where we'll start seeing the momentum everyone's looking for. But I think yesterday was a piece of the puzzle, and we have that. I also think that we have a unique situation right now where we really do have both commission working together and the leadership working together with the GCRA. And so I think what we will find moving forward will be opportunities where we can bring sort of these transformational projects, how our 10-year work plan sort of folds underneath those transformational projects. So we'll be bringing that forward to here, I would say between now and December as things unfold. But lots of really unique opportunities have come up. And so Asian Baldwin is one of them. And so by doing the boundary line, it's going to come down to more communication with leadership and also more communication back to the board to start moving things forward. But I think we're going to see that. So we can move into it and ask those questions. And as things move forward, I'll bring this to you. And so and yeah, fix it over there.
So Jay was there yesterday and heard the comments, and also at the county commission meeting presented there. I think what I'm hearing from the county commission, I don't have words in your mouth. My interpretation is, if all we do is build a sportsplex there, is that really a wise use of CRA funds? Sportsplex may be transformational there, but is it a wise use of CRA funds? And should we not do wild spaces, public places? I've heard at least 3 of the county commissioners express that to me. So I think that's where, and that's where we've got to get through the RFP process and see, is this going to be just a wild spaces public places project, or is this going to be a transformational project that also stimulates economic growth? That's what I keep hearing over and over in the, month and a half, 2 months that I've been working on CRA.
Okay. Well, reflecting on our priorities, the economic development piece was by the public's commentary, one of the more important things. So if the county want to breaks from the people's voice, it's on them.
Okay, any other member comments? Thank you, everyone. That's good. Okay, our next meeting is in 2 weeks. Correct? And that's the regular meeting, because this is a special meeting. All right. So, if we don't, any, excuse me, any further business, well, we are adjourned.